Stairwell I got high. Clear. Moving. Okay, next shot. Top of the stairs. Gotta get up there quick. Move. Get the door. Get the door.
Ready to die, bitch?
Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. Before I go any further, please go find me on X and Rumble, because YouTube has squashed my YouTube channel and making it very difficult for anybody to engage with me here. In fact, the engagement on the channel and views on the channel have dropped well over 90% in a couple of weeks. And so you can see that they're shadow banning the tar out of me. So get off of YouTube, please. Go over to Rumble. Go over to X. There are links in the top of the description. If you want to support Gun Guy TV, you can do that by going to Gun Guy TV Crew. You can find me on either Locals or Patreon. Locals is better because Locals doesn't censor either. They're actually owned by Rumble. All right, we're going to talk to Gun Owners of America with Ben Sanderson. We're going to talk about the Cargill case, which is the bump stock case. We'll talk about the pistol brace case, which is Mock versus Garland, and we will talk about the Texas versus ATF case. That was all of those. We got great victories, and that last one with Texas versus ATF was about turning everybody and their grandmother, including you, if you sell one gun or even think about it or talk about it, into a person who's required to be a federal firearms dealer. So without further ado, let's go talk to Ben. Ben, thank you very much for joining me. What a rockin' week. This has been a great week. I love the decisions. You guys are having victories all over the place, or victories for gun owners. For crying out loud. Hold on. I got to find the button here. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. A buddy of mine owns a ranch, Bill Matola. This is one of his hats. So we got a bunch of cases to talk about. Certainly the one that everybody's jumping them down about today is Cargill. That's the bump stock thing. And then we've got Mock versus Garland, the judge. This is all ATF going too far. Every last one of them. Mock versus Garland's ATF going too far. The whole bit with the Biden administration pushing ATF to turn everybody into a dealer, even if you only sold one gun in the last 5 years. Seems like the courts are going after this administrative state crap. Anyway, you know a lot more about it than I do, so give us an update. Where are we? What did we win? And where are we going?
Well, first off, Joel, I wanted to say thank you for having me back on again. It's been a while. I'm sorry.
It's been too long, man. It's been too long. I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be on the show.
Well, so what's happening? Give us an update.
So if we just want to start with the most recent thing, this Cargill lawsuit is absolutely huge. It goes beyond bump stocks. If you've read a little bit of opinion, it was a 6-3 decision. It was really great. It really focused on the actual mechanics of the trigger, in which, Justice Thomas said that, in fact, it's not the appearance or the rate of fire, but instead the actual functioning of the trigger, which needs to be defined and which needs to be looked at when you're regulating these things as so-called machine guns. Therefore, the bump stocks, because the trigger mechanism doesn't change, and instead the shooter actually does have to release and actuate the trigger a second time, it is no longer a machine gun. And this goes beyond bump stocks. You know, while bump stocks are now legal on a federal level, there are some bump stock state level bans. But now this prevents the ATF and all these other anti-gun groups from going after semi-automatic rifles, in which they could have claimed, oh, they're machine guns because you can pull the trigger too fast, or because of the rate of fire is too great, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, this also, I think, helps out the folks with the forced reset trigger, because that, again, is a single function of the trigger, or for that matter, a binary trigger, or whatever you want to call it, is, again, a single function of the trigger. So as he defined it in the decision, he actually had pictures. I loved it. He had actual images with arrows pointing about exactly how the trigger resets and where it resets, and that was absolutely brilliant. I noticed a couple of things in it that I thought was cool. One, well, actually, my glasses aren't helping me. One thing that I thought was neat, since we hear the argument all the time that semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15 are machine guns. Well, it was interesting that Clarence Thomas, like in the first three sentences, said, and I quote, "Semi-automatic firearms which require shooters to re-engage the trigger for every shot are not machine guns." And Justice Sotomayor, in her rather convoluted and somewhat difficult to grasp attempt to dissent, I thought she was smarter than that, wrote the following. Here's one quote in talking about the fool that shot up Las Vegas. "He did so by affixing bump stocks to, quote, commonly available semi-automatics." There's all this argument about, is it commonly in use? And then later in her dissent, she wrote, "Semi-automatic weapons are not machine guns under the statute. Take, for instance, an AR-15 style semi-automatic," and she did use the word assault rifle. "To rapidly fire an AR-15, a shooter must rapidly pull the trigger himself. It is semi-automatic because although the rifle automatically loads a new cartridge into the chamber after it is fired, it fires only one shot each time the shooter pulls the trigger." If you had bet me $100, Ben, that I would ever see that written by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, I would have taken that bet and doubled down, and I'd be paying up right now. So I don't know whether that's even useful, but I found that fascinating as well. So what are your thoughts on where this goes on a state level? Do we have grounds now to fight for this on a state level as well, or is it federal only?
Well, 100%. I think with all the new precedent that's being set by this case, there will be an opportunity for state level injunctions and state level lawsuits. I can't personally speak for that right now, but that's what I would definitely do, is look at all these new state laws, not only under Bruin, but under this new Cargill precedent, and really get away and try to push against this anti-Second Amendment unconstitutional laws that they're pushing, and by claiming that bump stocks are machine guns, when in fact they aren't. Obviously by this decision, but also what we've known for almost 7 years at this point.
You're a lobbyist, among other things. I want to make sure that I understand, and hopefully, if you're watching this, hopefully you get to understand this too. One of the big deals with this, it seems to me, is that ATF as an administrative agency does not have the authority to make up laws. They don't have the authority to redefine things that go outside the bounds of the actual statute. They're confined to the limits of what the statute says. Am I right about that?
You're 100% correct, yes.
Okay, and so if this has become sort of a crack to politicians who can't get through things, particularly presidents who can't get things through Congress. So like a crack addict, they go to an administrative agency and have them just make crap up. And that's not limited to ATF. That's all the administrative agencies. Do you see the court working to undo that ability by limiting these administrative agencies so they can't do this?
Oh, 100%. We've looked at the weaponization of the executive agencies for almost 10 years now, I'd say, or even longer than that. It really came down to, like you said, the gridlock in Congress and all of these activist presidents wanting to push forward their agenda, but being rightfully stopped by Congress when they're too extreme, and then going and getting their agencies to implement something. And this isn't only for guns. Well, for us, it's the most relevant. But there has been cases against the EPA, there's been cases against Fish and Wildlife, there's been a bunch of different cases talking about the overreach of the federal government and exactly the overreach of the statutory authority of these agencies.
And I think this is where I've heard a couple people freak out, or just kind of seen them freaking out a little bit. They're excited, but they're a little bit worried on social media that now Congress will take up the bump stock. But if they're going to have that argument, that's where we want them to have the argument, isn't it? Because that's where we have an effect. That's where we have legislators we can persuade to stay on our side or to fight a bill, where if it just goes through an administrative agency, we have to go fight them after the fact. We can't lobby it to keep it from getting through both houses of Congress and getting to a president like Biden who might sign it. So if it goes back to Congress, that's actually a positive for us, isn't it? I mean, that's a place where we actually have some voice and some ability to fight.
I agree with that. And I mean, that's my job as a lobbyist, is to prevent these things from passing. And while the president and the certain member of the Democratic Party have already called for a bump stock ban to be put into Congress, I don't think it's likely this year or even the next, but we'll definitely have to see. And if anything ever does come up, you can be sure that GOA and our lobbyists will be there to stop it.
We're in election year, right? And ATF did what they did because Trump pushed them to do it. I mean, that's the truth of it. I'm going to vote for President Trump because in spite of that, even his policies are just light years better than the present occupant of the White House. So if that's a choice between those two guys, then Trump's got my vote. But since Trump pushed this, what are your thoughts if he becomes president again? Do you think he'll push it again, or will he just leave it alone, having learned that maybe it's not such a bright idea to oppose gun owners?
I really hope he doesn't push this. I don't think he should. Yeah. But regardless, GOA will be there and will be there to at least counsel him against it and also fight against him if necessary. But I don't believe that President Trump would try to do something like this again.
Yeah, you mentioned something very interesting. The GOA would counsel him against it. In Trump's case, do gun owners have his ear in that regard? I mean, do we have the ability to counsel him against some of this stuff now? That we certainly don't have Biden's ear. Does it work if with a Republican president or a president that's at least more 2A friendly, that they might actually ask for our input, or we would have the ability to share it? Is that a thing?
I definitely believe so. I mean, the power of our grassroots movement is how we get a lot done in Congress. Is all these politicians are in fact afraid of re-election. They want to be reelected. They want to be in the good graces of their constituents. And that's why we're so powerful as an organization, is because we represent very active members that will call into their congressmen, their senators, or even the president and say, hey, this is anti-Second Amendment. You can't do that. Or, hey, this is a pro-Second Amendment bill. You should sign this or you should vote for this.
So as it stands right now, right at this moment at, what is it, 1:15 in the afternoon in San Diego. So what is it, 4-something-15 in where you're at? Can a gun owner who's not in a state like California that, makes everything illegal, can a gun owner that's in a state where bump stocks would otherwise be illegal absent this ATF rule, can they right now, today, go buy one if there's one available? Are they allowed to do that, or is there like a delay period when the decision actually takes effect?
I believe they are allowed to go out right now and buy one or 3D print one, but that's not me encouraging anything right now. I would say check in with your state laws, because they can be a little convoluted, and be doubly sure. I don't want to get anyone in trouble on accident.
Yeah, but under federal law, it seems like it's done. Am I right about that? It's done under federal law. So, yeah, if you're in a state that has a state law, you might run afoul of that. Certainly if you're in California, California does not allow bump stocks. California doesn't allow anything. So you can just assume that California doesn't allow bump stocks. We'll work on that. But obviously, if you're in a state that does, then federally there is no more federal restriction on them from ATF, and there's no federal law that bans them, which is why they tried to go through ATF in the first place. So you're good to go. But yeah, do your homework. Don't take my word for it. Neither Ben nor I are attorneys, and we don't play attorneys on YouTube or X or Rumble or anywhere else. All right. Let's talk about the pistol brace deal. That's also, it's interesting that none of these appear to be actually 2A cases. They're more violations of the Administrative Procedures Act. Am I reading these wrong? It's like none of them were decided based upon the Second Amendment as much as they were decided upon the idea that ATF overstepped its authority mightily by making these rules. So what happened with Mock versus Garland? That's the pistol brace deal. Where does that leave us federally?
Well, federally, it leaves us in a similar position to where we were before. There were a lot of preliminary injunctions against the pistol brace rule. Gun Owners of America received one. I believe there's several other Second Amendment organizations that had nationwide ones as well. But it's being vacated now, which is it's going down the next step in the legal ladder, if that makes any sense, where the change to you and me, we can still, if you're a member of any of these Second Amendment organizations or just a member of the public, you're allowed to go out and buy a pistol-braced firearm or a pistol brace. However, it has pushed and we're progressing down the legal pathway on the pistol brace case. And hopefully it does get taken up by the Supreme Court to be ruled on, just like this bump stock case.
All right, last one, and that is the Texas versus ATF deal. This was the attempt on the Biden administration, I think, if I read the decision correctly, and I kind of had to scan through that one because I was running out of time to read the decisions before this interview. That was the attempt on the Biden administration to rewrite a law that had previously excluded things like selling off part of your firearms collection, or selling an occasional firearm, and maybe you did that by going on GunBroker or whatever. And I think one of the things that people don't realize about selling things on the internet, if I sold one of my guns on GunBroker, and somebody in, I don't know, Washington State or somebody in Arizona wanted to buy it, then it has to be shipped to a dealer in that state. It can't just be shipped to that individual. It can't go across state lines, I don't think, without going to a dealer. So there's really no reason to put somebody in this position where if they sell one gun or two guns that they have to suddenly be federal firearms dealers, or they're in violation. The other thing I think this did, if I read it right, was it made it a firearms violation. So if you screwed up and got caught doing this, you could potentially lose your firearms rights. I'm not sure about that, but it seemed to be the case. In any case, the judge tossed it, but that's another example, isn't it, of ATF just going way beyond the confines of the actual law.
You're 100% correct. And this is actually an offshoot of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which was written by Senator Cornyn and Senator Murphy. They changed the definition of what a dealer was and what it meant to be engaged in the business as a dealer. And they switched it to simply predominantly earning a profit. Now, the ATF completely weaponized that language and is saying that a single firearms transaction, or even an offer to engage in a transaction, would have resulted in you potentially needing a license to sell that firearm or even offer it.
So wait. Let's back up a second, because I didn't get that. Maybe I didn't pick up on it. You said a single transaction or even an offer to sell a firearm. So you didn't actually have to sell it. You could just offer to do so, as the way ATF was looking at it. Did I hear you correctly about that?
100%. That was in their final rule, where they said an offer or even selling a single firearm along with quote unquote other evidence would be considered being engaged in the business. And this other evidence was as simple as selling a gun you didn't like within a year, or using a different name online other than your full legal name, which they would have considered a business synonym and use that against you in a court of law. Now, on top of that, if you did any of these things, you were presumptively assumed guilty rather than innocent. So you'd have to go through court and prove that you were not engaged in the business as a dealer instead.
So, I'm asking a naive question here, but I'd love to have you articulate it. You'll probably say it better than me. What is the purpose behind that? There's no injured party if I sell one of my shotguns and I happen to use the email address, which I don't have, by the way. So if you're watching this, don't try to email me at this address. I don't have the email address. I'm a duck hunter at, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever.com. But if I use that, and I use that as my moniker when I'm selling this thing, then I'm a business now, because I use some sort of a thing rather than putting Joel Persinger on there. What is the actual point behind regulating that?
Well, to go off of what President Biden said, it's to push this country as close to universal background checks as possible without any act of Congress. And this is exactly what he's done with his executive order, is to push us as close as we can be to a universal background check system. And that only feeds into the larger illegal gun registry that we know ATF has.
Anything else you think that gun owners should know about these cases, or what might be coming up? I mean, we still have some cases we're waiting on SCOTUS to decide on this month, aren't we? I think Rahimi, and I don't know what else. What else is coming?
Well, I can talk about Gun Owners America currently has 2 cases that are in front of the Supreme Court right now. We're waiting to see if they take them up. That would be our Illinois assault weapons ban case, as well as our Antonyuk versus Hochul case in New York. Now, the first one of those is on semi-automatic rifle bans, which they like to call assault weapons bans. And our second one is on the ability to conceal carry without these supposed safe zones in New York.
So you got an assault weapon. I even hate the term. You got an assault weapon ban, okay, if you want to call it that, in California. You got a similar one in New York. You got or wherever. And you got another one, and you got another one. Or you got a bunch of these sensitive place things. And then in one circuit, they declare that null and void and unconstitutional. And in another circuit, they go, oh, no, that's constitutional. And now you have a circuit split. And my understanding from these attorneys is that the Supreme Court is more likely to take something where different circuits are split so that they can settle the argument. So now that I've just laid that foundation, is it a weird hope that we win one in one circuit and lose one in another, specifically so that we'll have a circuit split so the Supreme Court will take it while we have what appears to be a pro-firearm majority? Or am I now going to be hated by all gun owners everywhere? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that definitely is one of the criteria the Supreme Court does look at. I can't speak for our legal strategy on that. You'd have to talk to people much smarter than me in the organization. But the circuit split, that's something that happened in the bump stock cases. Our case up in the 8th Circuit, unfortunately, decided there as constitutional. However, this Cargill case in the 5th Circuit found the bump stock case to be unconstitutional. And that's exactly why the Supreme Court took it up and decided it. And we're very happy to have played our part in it and filing amicus briefs in all of these cases as well to help push forward the Second Amendment.
And is there anything else that we should be talking about that we have not discussed? Any burning things that we should be bringing up at this moment?
Yeah, I wanted to tell your audience about Gun Owners America's first inaugural convention that's going to be happening in Knoxville, Tennessee, August 17th to 18th. It's going to be a bunch of fun. It's going to be family friendly. We're going to have all of our industry partners out there. I believe we're over 100 vendors right now. We're going to have some great speakers and should be a ton of fun. And I hope to see you there, Joel.
I wasn't invited until this very moment. So you got me while I'm on the show. I'm hoping to see you there, Joel. Actually, you probably won't. I'm so buried in work at this point that I probably won't make it. But I'll be there in spirit. I don't know. I might go, but it just depends on time and space and place. But hopefully we'll see. Well, Ben, thank you very much for coming on the show again. I hope you will return. It's been a long time since I've seen you, brother, so you're always welcome back. Don't wait on me. Shoot me an email and say, hey, we're going to talk about this and that, and we can. Otherwise, I'll just pester Eric and pester you and twist your arm, have you come back on. Thanks for coming. Thank you a ton for watching the entire interview. I'm very grateful that you do that. Have a great week. Please do, again, I'll say it again, go to X and Rumble. YouTube sucks, and they continually ban me and shadow ban me and squash my videos. They do it a lot. So go over to those other places and at least subscribe there if you want to make sure you get the video. Or you can go to the link in the description. You can sign up for my email blasts. We send out an email for every video that I produce, so you'll at least get the link that way, one way or the other. If you want to support the channel, you can do it by going to GunGuyTV Crew, and you can find that on either Locals or Patreon. There is a link in the description where you can go to GunGuyTVCrew.org. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, and wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.